So it is time for the Monday webinar. Let's have a look at what's going on. So once again, welcome to everybody. Always good to see you guys. Remember that those that are joining us for the very first time today, or that tune in from time to time on our live Monday webinars, you can get a little bit better of a look at everything by by going to daytradersfx.com and clicking right here for a free trial. We'd love to have you with us. You can get a free 5-day trial right there at that link, daytradersfx.com/about. We'd love to have you. Because these daily updates, these Monday updates, actually happen on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday as well, and they happen on Tuesday mornings and Wednesday mornings and Thursday mornings also, and there's lots of good stuff to talk about. All right. I always like to start things off by looking at what we have going on on the calendar, and we have a lot. We have a lot. I mean, we have kind of a crazy amount going on here. So let's just have a quick little look. Starting off, we've already seen several news announcements today. CAD GDP numbers, some Euro CPI, all that stuff. We have more coming out. Oh, good grief, is this today? I was thinking this was Tuesday for some reason. We have Aussie interest rates and RBA stuff today. Uh-oh. Is audio working? Might be working bad for Bob there. Is everyone else good on audio? Is everyone else good for the audio side of things? We're good to go. All right, good. Okay, yeah. Sometimes the audio will have a little bit of a problem here and there. But we have interest rate stuff for Australia tonight. This is like 100% of the time a big deal. So we got to keep an eye on this coming up. Tuesday, we have ISM for the U.S. in the morning, so we'll be watching that. We have some manufacturing PMI for the U.K. And some more Aussie news on Tuesday. Wednesday, we have ADP for the U.S., which is always a big mover. Not necessarily a huge mover, but definitely can be a big mover. This always happens the week of non-farm payroll. Then we have some Aussie news on Wednesday. Thursday, we have ECB press conference. Oh, that's always a big deal. And that of course comes after the interest rate and all of those details there. So that'll be happening Thursday morning. Thursday morning is going to be a big morning for sure. Lots of U.S. news as well. And then we top it off with Canadian and U.S. employment numbers on Friday. So big week of news. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So just kind of keep that in mind, and I'll of course be sending out tweets and updates on what's happening and what we're watching and what we're doing and so on. Okay, so let's get right down to it. There's a couple of pairs. You guys have heard me talk about pre-summer movements. Pre-summer movements are very much in the works. We have some of that stuff coming up, and I'm pretty excited about it. On top of that, I talked a little bit about, in the email that hopefully some of you guys saw today, I talked a little bit about the 3 basics of trading, which is the trend is your friend, always use stop losses, and use good money management. And I mentioned in the email that I would talk about how in using good money management, you can kind of break the crap out of the first 2 rules, which is trading with the trend and using stop losses. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and we're going to talk about how that will apply to some of these setups here. Because it's fantastic. It really is fantastic. And I'm going to show you a couple of setups where all of those types of things will apply in such a good way. So I hope you guys are ready for some good material, and I hope you're ready. This recording will be posted later for everybody. You can all see it. It'll be on. If you're not on my email list, make sure you get on the email list. You can join it by just going to daytradersfx.com, and a little box will pop up and tell you to put in your email and do it. But let's get right down to those. Okay, so in the spirit of pre-summer movements, here's my prediction. We're going to see the euro dollar, pound dollar, Aussie dollar pairs go up a little bit more, and then we're going to start to see some reversals. And so that's basically what I think is going to happen. I think the euro dollar is going to head higher, and then I think it's going to reverse and start coming back down. The euro dollar isn't giving us a whole lot in the way of what I look for, which is 200 moving average gaps, missed weekly pivot points, all of that stuff. I think the euro dollar, I mean, do we even have a missed weekly pivot on euro dollar? I thought we had one somewhere down here. I think we do. On this see. If we go, I think we have, don't we have a missed weekly pivot? There we go. 127.35 is our missed weekly pivot on euro dollar. That's like the only one we have. And we have one up here at 143. If the euro dollar were to get up to 143, I would be decently surprised, but it is possible that it does get up there. So what I'm looking for is a little run into some of these highs before we start seeing some reversals. Now remember, the euro dollar has like the least interesting of all the setups, but the euro dollar has run away from this 200 moving average by about 125 bars. Not major, and I bet even on some charts it will have touched back here around the beginning of February, and maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I don't know. The euro's not crazy interesting looking, but what I think is going to happen is I think that as we are at this upper area here, remember we've looked at this monthly chart plenty of times, and as we look at this right here, we can see that it could very, I don't know how this thing's going to end. I don't know how it's going to close, but the euro dollar could make some pretty wild and crazy movements here and leave us with a nice price rejection candle. And if that happens, then I'll probably be looking to get short euro dollar sooner than later. But for the moment, I'm just kind of watching this euro dollar. I think we might get one more spike, one more break higher before we start shorting this, but I don't have any really exciting, really fantastic entries on this one just yet. But I just so you guys know, again, it doesn't super duper meet any of our criterias for entries right now, which doesn't mean that it's not worth trading. But I think there's going to be a little more clarity on this in the coming days, hopefully. So let's keep our eyes out for that kind of situation. Now, where things do get pretty interesting is pound dollar. This pound dollar is looking very, very good, and I think we've got a very nice opportunity here to trade this. Now let's look at the pound dollar. Remember a couple of things that we're looking at. Number one, we want to see something that hasn't touched the daily 200 exponential moving average for a long time. This one has not touched for a pretty long time. We're 180, about 185 bars since the last touch of the 200 moving average. Now, on a daily chart, we don't expect this thing to just go forever away from the 200 moving average. So what I'm looking for in the pound dollar is I'm looking for an opportunity to short against 168.20. Now, what's very common, we have all these missed weekly pivots. We have our current weekly pivot right here, which is just, actually, was that last week's? No, that's the current. So our current weekly pivot has not yet been touched. But we have a current weekly pivot that hasn't been touched, and we have one from a few weeks ago that hasn't been touched, and then one from a few months ago, and then more from a few months ago down here. So we have at least 3 or 4 missed weekly pivots on the pound dollar. We haven't touched the 200 moving average in 185 bars. And I think that we're going to get like some sort of double top or something worth trading here. What we see happen often is things will start to channel before reversals. And so what I think I would be really loving to do, and this is where I'm talking about that breaking the rules properly. In a situation like this, if I get the pound dollar up to 168.20, with the right money management, I would be happy to jump in that trade and just let it go. Let it go, let it do whatever it's going to do. We're just shy of 170. I would take a small position and let this thing play out and look into look at adding to my position as the trade moved along. But 168.20 now, this is obviously still a little bit, we need to go another 100 or 150 pips before this gets really interesting, and we're really going to start looking at that exact entry. But I think we're going to be able to get up here just a little bit more. This trend line has been tested over the last couple of months. We're in this nice little channel right here, and so if we break this trend line, I think we have a very easy shot for a double top. But if we break that trend line, we could even be breaking that double top. So that's where I want to kind of watch for a double top, see if we can test this level. If we do test that level and it starts to bounce off of it, then we'll take an entry, hopefully in the high 16700s. So again, in another 100, 150 pips, somewhere in that general area, we'd be looking to get short, and we'd start with a small position and be targeting from somewhere in this upper area our missed 200 moving average, which is like 500 pips away. So if we get that, I would get into this trade literally with no stop loss and let this thing draw down whatever it's going to draw down. and just let it play out and let it ride. We have way too many missed weekly pivots and a 200 moving average for this to just go up forever. And I think our pre-summer movement is going to be nicely to the downside after we get that one more stab higher. So I think we've got that one more stab higher coming, and then we start shorting this. So again, right around that 16800 area, I'm looking to get short, for lack of a better term, stop lossless. I'm just getting into it, no stop loss, and I'm going to let this thing come right on back down to that 200 moving average, and I'm going to make 500 pips on this trade. That's just what's going to happen. Hopefully we'll make a little bit more, but I think we're going to make 500 pips on this thing. But again, I want to see some double tops happen. I want to see a little bit of confirmation there that level is going to hold. If it just plows right through 16800, I'm not putting a pending order up here. If it just busts right through 16800 on some news announcement or something, then I wait and I look for another entry. But if it double tops and bounces off that, then I'm short, and I'm going to let this thing use all the room it needs to make its way back to that 200 moving average. We're already about double the average of how often this touches the 200 moving average. It's about every 75 or 80 bars that it touches that 200 moving average. And what did I say? We're at 180, so we're more than double how far this moves away from that 200 moving average. So this thing is ready to go, and I'm going to be jumping into it with good money management, small trade sizes to start off, and then I will add to those trade sizes as more entries set up and appear. So as this thing is running down and running in our direction, we'll be looking for things like bear flags and head and shoulders, inverted or regular head and shoulder patterns, anything like that to continue to add to this trade over the course of 500 pips. Hopefully that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions about that? Good. Gustavo's on board. Excellent. And Glenn, if it hasn't missed for a long time, what event do you would? So if we, now Glenn, I think you're referring to if we have a missed 200 moving average, or if the market hasn't missed a 200 moving average. Is that what you're saying? Maybe clarify that question for me a little bit. Type it out again, just to make sure. So you're saying if it hasn't missed the 200 moving average for a long time, what else do I look for? If that is the question, then I look for another pair is what I look for. Because if I see something that hasn't touched a 200 moving average, or that it's just bouncing around it, then I'll just move to another pair. Okay, yeah, Glenn, yeah, maybe type a little bit more on that so I can answer that question as best as possible. Okay, so that's what we're doing on the pound dollar. And Glenn, I think that's a good question. I just want to make sure I'm getting everything there. So that's what we're looking for on the pound dollar. As far as short-term stuff, don't care about the short-term on the pound dollar. It's all about looking for opportunities to short this pair, and we're going to get those somewhere around 16800. We're going to get there. We are going to get there, and I'm pretty excited about it. Okay, Aussie dollar. This one, I'm just going to say something really quick about the Aussie dollar. I still want to see some retracement. I want to see this thing pull back a little bit, and it hasn't. If this gets down 100 pips, then it gets a little more interesting. And 100 pips, puts us around 91, 50, 60, 70 area. Then I'm excited about that, and I'll be looking to trade this and get back to it. But for the moment, I'm not doing anything on the Aussie dollar just yet. Now remember, we do have interest rates and the RBA statement for Australia today, tonight, in a couple of hours. So that's going to get all Aussie pairs moving like crazy. So we shouldn't even worry about the Aussie dollar right now until after the news and after everything kind of goes from there. So that's what we will be watching for on the Aussie dollar. And same thing, on the Aussie yen and all that. Still not doing much on yen pairs. I've been watching them, and I'm just not super interested. A quick little look on gold. Remember what we have on gold. First of all, we have huge reversal everythings on gold. Gold is so bearish in the medium term, I can't even stand it. It's just been tanking like crazy. So we need to see gold kind of recover just a little bit so we can start shorting against that recovery. And for the moment, it's giving us, it's not recovering at all. Now, one thing to remember on timing If you see on the 1 hour chart, for example, we know that gold's big movement is probably to the downside, but if we see on the 1 hour chart that we haven't touched that 200 moving average in a long time, then that means the short-term movement is getting exhausted, and this is going to retrace at least some amount. We have a couple of missed weekly pivots, and this 200 moving average on the 1 hour chart that hasn't been touched in over 200 bars. So that's something where I say either look for short-term buy opportunities or hold out for that move up before getting short, because it will move up. But no specific entry on gold just yet. I'm going to look a little further into that one as the week goes on and hopefully get some nice entries there. Dollar CAD, we have some big employment numbers for the dollar CAD, which I love, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity there. If I'm right about the fact that euro dollar and pound dollar will probably head up another bit, 100, maybe even 200 pips, if that is in fact the case, then that gives us a very nice opportunity for shorts on dollar CAD. Right now the dollar CAD is kind of, we have a really short-term rising wedge right here, and we're outside of that rising wedge. So we've hit this and really established this thing a couple of times. This is the daily chart, and we've hit this ascending trend line a few times, and we've got a couple of nice opens below that trend line. What I would love to see is if the dollar CAD runs up and bounces around the 11200 area, then I would absolutely get short against these highs right here. So against those highs, I'm pretty fantastically excited about getting short. Why? Because we have a daily 200 moving average that has not been touched in a long time, 136 bars now, and we have at least 3 missed weekly pivots that I can see. There might be more, and I don't even care if there's more, because 3 is enough and that's got plenty of my attention to really start getting short. Now, on the short-term moves, if we do continue to see a little bit of euro and pound strength, maybe even some Aussie strength there, then the dollar CAD could turn out to be a really nice little opportunity here. We have this crazy strong reversal bullish hammer here on the 4 hour chart, but that doesn't change the fact that we have opened below this rising wedge on the daily chart, and this could open the pair up to a move down to 10800. So we're going to be watching this pair pretty closely, and I would say that if we break this double bottom, I'm probably in it. And you can see this double bottom pretty nicely on this 1 hour chart. If we break that basically to the pip exact double bottom, which is that's right at 110. That's 110 even, 110.01 even. So we'll just say 110 to the number. Below that, I am short into. If we break that, I'm short into 10800. So there's at least a nice little easy 200 pip trade going into that. And one other thing that I would look for is there's a whole bunch of resistance right here. We have our 200 moving average on this daily chart, or excuse me, on this 1 hour chart right here. And you can see it's been about 80 or so bars since our last touch on the 200 moving average on the 1 hour chart. 1100 will have the rising wedge trend line, a weekly pivot, and a 200 moving average. So this could be another good area to get short dollar CAD. So just keep that in mind. But again, the break of 110 is going to be a great area to get short. Look for a bounce at 1100 as well to get short, and kind of take it from there. The dollar CAD's not a set it, forget it kind of a trade, let it run as far as it's going to run kind of a thing. This one's a little more temperamental, and so again, breaking 110.100 would be a good area to start trading down to that 108. And even 107.50, but I think we might get another stab. We might get excuse me, we might get a double top. We could get some sort of ugly head and shoulders pattern here. This could be a right shoulder right there. That could be the head, and we could be working our way back up there. So just keep an eye on that. Really good setup on dollar CAD. Our Euro Aussie and Pound Aussie pairs are pretty interessante for a couple of reasons. Number one, we don't want to be shorting this Euro Aussie just yet, because look at the 1 hour chart. It has now been 185 bars since our last touch of the 200 moving average on the 1 hour chart. This means that this pair is probably going to run up just a little bit more before heading back down. Now I know we have a really short term, like a 15-minute chart bear flag right here, ran down, bumped around, it could be continuing lower. That's all fine and dandy, but I am much more interested in this pair running up just a little bit and giving me an opportunity to get short around the 200 moving average and around some of those resistance levels, because I think that I think that over kind of extended 1 hour chart is trying to tell us something. So we want to look at that. We're not super overextended on the 4 hour chart, so everything looks pretty copacetic there, but I think we do have a fairly extended 1 hour chart that's going to give us an opportunity to enter on some pullback. So I'm still looking for about the 150 area to start shorting Euro Aussie, but I'm going to see how the news goes with Australia this afternoon and what opportunities we have there. So I'm still looking at 150, but in the next several hours we'll know what Australia is doing, and we'll know kind of what their plan is and any telltale signs of what their future interest rates might be looking like. So I'm going to hold off on doing anything on Euro Aussie until after that news. But 150 is still kind of my mental area where I'm looking to get short this pair. Same kind of situation with Pound Aussie. This thing, now the Euro Aussie, one difference is the Euro Aussie did touch the 200 moving average on the daily chart, and the Pound Aussie has not. The Pound Aussie came pretty close and then pulled back quite a bit. We still have a missed weekly pivot down here at 178.60, which is 100 pips below, and we've still got plenty of room of pullback here. So again, both of them still have very, 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 very much intact daily head and shoulders patterns with like 800 to 1100 pip profit targets. But we need to get just a little bit of pullback. We got to get through this Aussie news here before we're going to start taking those entries. So I'm still, I talked about in the notes, which I need to update everything here. I talked about the fact that 180 is still my target entry area on Euro Aussie, or excuse me, on Pound Aussie. But I'm going to again wait and see how the news goes and see what happens there. But it doesn't change the fact that there's a huge daily head and shoulders pattern that we want to be getting in short against and targeting these lower areas, at least the 200 moving average, which is about 177.50 area, and then we have all these missed weekly pivots down here as well. So I'm still looking for all of that. So I'll we'll have to tune back for on these Aussie pairs after the news hits and kind of see where everything's going. CAD Swiss franc, a favorite. I'm pretty excited about this. One thing that we saw happen on the CAD Swiss franc is a very, very nice little move here. We broke out of this falling wedge. This thing just went crazy. In 2 days, it just shot up. I mean, I don't know, crazy, but it shot up 120 or 30 pips in a couple of day period. And then it left this nice, big, nice price rejection reversal candle. This isn't the most beautiful shooting star I've ever seen, but it's good enough. And now everything's kind of pulling back a little bit, and I think we could end up with an inverted head and shoulders pattern. So this is why I'm being patient on this pair. Remember, if we zoom this out just a little bit, remember the CAD Swiss franc hasn't touched the 200 moving average in 227 bars. That's too much. So it's time for it to get back up into that area. But it is in retracement mode right now. We are about just about 200 pips off that low. So what the CAD Swiss franc will probably be doing is bouncing around down here just a little bit. So let's look for entries around 7,900 or even 7,850. I bet we'll see it again. I would bet a lot that we'll be able to get an entry somewhere between 7,850 and 7,900 long on CAD Swiss franc. This is coming back to some degree, and I think it might be pretty big. Now remember, we've already touched 200 moving averages on 1 and 4 hour charts, and so those are all looking good. But we need to wait, and we need to get this CAD Swiss franc back into that back into that 78.50 area and start looking at getting long there. Now the CAD Swiss franc is also one of those trades that once we get down into that 78.50, zone, I'm going to be getting long, and I'm going to be forgetting about a stop loss, and I'm going to be letting this thing run. I'm going to start with a small position. Now, a small position, what does a small position mean? That means that whatever your account size is, you've got to be okay with this trade potentially going against you like, I don't know, 200 pips. And if you're okay with that kind of drawdown, then you have about the right trade size. So whatever your account size is, just know that when we start getting into such overextended areas like this CAD Swiss franc is, these are trades that are worth getting into and not getting out of. You hear a lot, don't be married to your trade. I will be married to this trade. This trade and I are till death do us part, kind of a thing. And so I will plan on getting in majorly long CAD Swiss franc. Again, starting with reasonable lot sizes and adding to that as we get into some profit, but I will let this trade run as long as it needs to run until I get paid. And so that's what I'm going to do. And as I talked about in the email, the trend is your friend. Well, this is a downtrend. Why am I buying into a downtrend? Because everything else tells us that this downtrend is bordering total exhaustion. So that is what we're looking for here. And we want to be, getting into these setups and writing them out and making some money on them. It's always fun to really just ride these trades into the ground and make some good cash on them. And sometimes it takes some time, but one thing that I have learned is if you're not okay with taking some decent drawdown on a trade, again, we don't want to be married to trades that are bad trades. But these are not bad trades. Something like the CAD Swiss franc or the pound dollar could potentially just continue going against us for another few hundred pips, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. But we're not getting into something that is consolidated, that it's in the middle of something it could break for 1,000 pips one way or another. These have already made huge movements of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 pips. We're getting in because these signals are telling us that historically speaking, this probably can't run too much further. And yes, I said probably, and I'm willing to put money on probably. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at there. Here's another one that I think is very, very interesting, that I think is going to be a fantastic money maker, if I have it up here. The Aussie New Zealand looks super awesome. Super, super awesome. Remember, this Aussie New Zealand right here, I don't even know when the last time it touched the 200 moving average. It's been all the way back here in March. It's been an entire year, March 20th of 2013. And we're about 325 bars or so into this movement. 325 bars. This is a big deal. This pair right here, you can see that it's forming. We have a nice little double bottom down here at about 105.50 area. And you can see that it's kind of got this upper area as well at about 108.85. So there's a couple of 100 pip channel on this pair, and it has been for a couple of months now. We're talking about 4 months or so of being in this channel. Now remember, I talk about this channel because this is where this pair is starting to bounce around because of major amounts of exhaustion. Now if we look at missed weekly pivots, for example, you can see that there's a missed weekly pivot up here at 113.80. Keep in mind we're at 106.80, so our first weekly pivot 700 pips away. And we have another missed weekly pivot at 118 and change, and another missed weekly pivot at 122 and change, and 123 and 124 and blah blah blah. So they just kind of go forever. There are like a million missed weekly pivots above this Aussie New Zealand, and it has gone a very long time since it last touched the 200 moving average. I, needless to say, am very excited about getting seriously long on this kind of a trade. Again, so to kind of rehash, pound dollar, I will get in short as soon as that thing runs up into that 168 and maybe even a little bit beyond. No stop loss. I'm letting the thing run. I'm just going to let it play out. Same thing on CAD Swiss franc. If CAD Swiss franc drops about 100 to 150 pips, I'm long, no stop loss, letting that thing just go. Aussie New Zealand, I want to see this dip down just a little bit so I can get in a little closer to the bottom of this channel. Remember, these boxes, this has been bouncing around for a couple of months. So if we get one more stab at that low, I'm getting into this thing and I'm just going to let the trade run, and I'm going to make some pretty fantastic cash on it. And I would love for you guys to all get in on that. Trust me, I thought about not talking to anybody about this, saying, use your stop losses and keep everything really safe and secure and boring and all that stuff. But I closed out. I closed out Euro Aussie trades on this run down here. Last week I closed about 20,500 right around there in profit on Euro Aussie trades. Trades that I just got in and I just let them run. And it was at that point that I thought, for those that can handle this, I'm going to share it and we're going to talk about it and we're going to trade it. And for those that are not comfortable with drawdowns, then I will try to suggest as many fantastic short-term, quote, safe entries as I can find. But I'm in it for the long haul, and I'm looking for these big runs to just run and run and run. And we're going to be in on them, and we're going to make a lot of money on them. So I hope you guys are on board. But my big pairs of focus right now are definitely Aussie New Zealand, definitely pound dollar, definitely CAD Swiss franc, and then we'll have a bigger discussion about the Aussie pairs after the central bank Aussie news tonight. So we'll see how that goes. But those are definitely some good ones I'm looking at. Tom, yeah, actually the EuroCAD is kind of interesting. I have been watching the EuroCAD. Thanks for reminding me on that one, Tom. The EuroCAD is a good-looking one as well because it does, once again, falls nicely into our category. As you can see, I had my rising wedge here. We broke out of that, and it's pulling back a little bit. This one goes very nicely back, 275 bars on the daily chart since it last touched. We have at least 3 missed weekly pivots. So the EuroCAD is amazing. This one looks great. What I think we might be seeing here is a bit of, we talked about this a little bit last week, but I think we could see a little bit of a head and shoulders pattern. So here's a shoulder, here's a head, and this is kind of dipping down. This could be kind of, depending on where that shoulder is, this could be like a short-term neckline right there. We could have a bigger neckline down below. So I think we're going to get some retracement, and I will absolutely be looking to get short EuroCAD as we test this ascending trend line that it broke out of. So I think that's going to be a really, really great one. I really like this EuroCAD a lot. We did talk about this last week, and we will continue to watch this one this week, and opportunities to get short somewhere against this high. We're about 370 pips from the high, so I'd like to see this pull back 150, maybe even 200 pips before I start looking for those shorts. But I think this EuroCAD is beautiful. Thanks for bringing that up, Tom. And Dan, I haven't looked at the pound CAD much lately, but it's very similar to the EuroCAD most of the time. Let's pull up a pound CAD chart, and we'll just have a quick look at it, see what we can see here. Yeah, okay, so, okay, I remember this pound CAD chart. I looked at it a little bit last week, but not a ton. Nice little double top in the works there. I don't think the pound CAD, that was one thing I remember about the pound CAD. There was no missed weekly pivots down below. That's kind of eerie to me, just a little bit. It doesn't mean it's not going to make a run, but there's something wrong with that if there's not a missed weekly pivot. We are over 200 bars since the last test on this 200 moving average. So that's definitely very good. This 186.50 high here is 100% worth keeping a very close eye on. So I like that. I'm looking at that very, very carefully and very closely. It's a choppy looking chart, so I'd be careful with it, but as long as we stay below that 186, it's about 200 pips away, a little more than 200 pips away, 240 or so. If we can stay below that, that's going to be an interesting, a very fantastic short, and we have some huge profit potential. I mean, it's 900 pips right now away from the 200 moving average, so that's pretty good. So I like that, absolutely. So again, guys, my big focus, thanks Dan, good question. My big focus is pound dollar, CAD Swiss franc, and Aussie New Zealand are all looking amazing, and the rest of them are setting up and hopefully will give us some entries coming up here pretty quick. So yeah, Gustavo, yeah, I'll mention the New Zealand dollar real quick. New Zealand dollar, let me just say this real fast. I think the New Zealand dollar might surprise. I think it might surprise. It hasn't gone far enough away from anything It's 45 bars from the 200 moving average on the daily chart. The 4-hour chart looks a little bit better, but not a ton. I don't know. I think this New Zealand dollar could surprise. I think this could continue quite a bit higher than anybody's expecting. So, but with enough time, I think over the next couple of weeks, the New Zealand dollar could get into an interesting place. It's definitely not ready yet. Definitely not ready yet. Absolutely. Okay, guys, I'm going to start this recording. I don't want to use the recording to answer a bunch of questions, so I will answer everyone's questions right now. And Glenn, I'm going to go back to yours. And any other questions, guys, please type them in, and let's just talk about them for a moment while we get this recording going.